You've updated your website, you've created your directory listing, you've been networking with peers and other professionals, you're getting inquiries, you've had an intro session and you've agreed to take on that new client. But when it comes to that first session, they're a no-show. Has this happened to you before? In this video, I'm going to explore why what happens between that initial inquiry and the client's first session is so important in creating a welcoming, supportive, and professional space for your clients before therapy even begins. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kim. I help therapists in private practice get online, get confident with admin, and reduce tech overwhelm. So first of all, let's talk about what onboarding means. I use the term onboarding for everything that happens before your client has the first session. Now, you may call this intake, but basically it's the same thing. It's all the processes that you have in place from when the client says yes to working with you all the way up to that first session. Clients will get an impression of working with you from every single interaction they have with you. That will start from when they first see you, whether that's on the directory listing or a referral or your website. It will be any email interactions they have with you, how they find communicating with you, and if you had an intro call with them, what that experience was like for them. So let's talk about what some of the barriers can be when people are trying to access therapy with you. So we are going to concentrate on the onboarding procedure because this is where a lot of the mistakes can happen, but also it can have the biggest impact on getting the clients to that first session and then continuing therapy with you. So first of all, was it easy for them to communicate with you? Was it easy for them to find a contact email address or a form that they had to fill out? So you want to make that really, really easy. If it's not easy for people to contact you, then they're not going to. They're just going to move on to the next person. So you really want to make sure that being able to get in contact with you is the easiest thing to do. And I would suggest making sure that is via email, because if you put a phone number on there, 99% of the time you are not going to answer that phone call. You're either going to be doing something else, you're going to be in therapy with other clients, and then you're probably going to get a ping pong effect of you calling them back, them calling you back, leaving voice notes and all that kind of stuff. And that already is very difficult for somebody to imagine working with you when they can't even get hold of you. So I would 100% say put an email address wherever you are advertising your services, because then they will send an email. They will not expect an email literally straight away, but you will then be able to reply to them, and it will be much easier than this ping pong of phone calls and voice notes and things like that. Next, was it easy for them to book an intro call with you? So if you offer this service, I would really consider finding ways that you can very clearly let somebody know what your availability is and offer them multiple session times so that they can very quickly book in with you. If it is difficult to book that initial session, they're probably going to think that it's going to be difficult to get regular session times with you. Another barrier can be you being upfront with certain important information. So this could be your availability, your invoicing procedure. Like I said, with the discovery calls and being able to book in with you, there's lots of procedures that you have in your practice that people need to know about. And if you're not upfront with this information, it can be a real barrier to people being able to access therapy with you. Another barrier to people accessing therapy is you giving information verbally and not backing it up in writing. Now, this can be over email, it can be in your therapy paperwork, but you always want to make sure any important information you're giving your clients is backed up in writing. On that subject, another barrier to therapy is having all of your information in your paperwork, so it's all buried in a big contract or an agreement, and you not pulling out really key important information, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, for them really easily to understand. So anything that they need to know urgently, such as how to book in with you, how to reschedule, what your cancellation policy is, how they pay, all this kind of stuff, they need to know about really easily. If it's just buried in your paperwork, that can cause problems later on, or even right before they start therapy in terms of not being able to pay and things like that. So you want to make sure that all of the key information in your practice they know about on that intro call, but also in some kind of written information, not buried in your paperwork. And finally, and this really kind of culminates everything I've said, It's really a lack of clarity in your procedures. If you don't have clarity around your procedures and you're just kind of winging it, and you are giving each client a different experience of onboarding with you and working with you, that's never going to work well for anybody. You really want to make sure that you are super clear on all of your procedures so that you can make it clear to any potential clients. If you have a poor onboarding procedure, it will really deter people from working with you. I have worked with many therapist clients, and getting this step right really has meant that more people have turned up to that first session and the client retention has been greater. So how can you improve your onboarding procedure so that more people can access therapy? So my number one tip is making sure that you understand your onboarding procedure. And I've got a video that talks about the onboarding procedure, which I will link. So definitely go to that next if you really don't think that you have your onboarding procedure down. You need to understand all of the steps that you need to take in order to onboard a new client so that you can really easily replicate this for each client, and every single new client gets the same experience of starting to work with you and work with you. Next, make sure, like I said before, that you have an email address everywhere that people can contact you, and make sure that it is known to anybody that refers to you that that is your preferred method of contact. You want to be really clear about your availability up front. So if you only have one session time available, there is no point in having an intro call with a client and starting that onboarding procedure if that availability is not going to fit with them. So let's say you have Wednesday at 10 a.m. available in your schedule on a weekly basis. Be upfront about that straight away. Yes, that will obviously put off some clients who cannot fit in with that. There might be other things you can do, like offering a wait list for other availability, but you want to make sure that the clients understand what your availability is, and that's going to benefit both of you. You don't want to start working with a client at a time that doesn't suit you and a time that you don't want to work, and you want to make sure that the times that you have available really suit and will work long term with a client so that you can continue that relationship after an initial session or an initial couple of sessions, because you don't want to start working with someone whilst they're just looking for somebody else. You want somebody that you can work long term with. I would suggest getting a free Calendly account, and what you can do is just add a free 15-minute intro call and send that link out to clients so that they can very easily find a time that suits you, because you would have already input your availability, and they can book in an intro call with you really quickly. That is going to give them a really good impression of being able to work with you. Whereas a back and forth of, can you do Tuesday at 10? No. Can you do Friday at 5? No. Can you do next week? Like, all this kind of stuff is really going to put a client off from working with you because it already seems difficult and you haven't even met with them yet. Make sure in that intro call you are giving the clients all the information they need to work with you. Your fee, your cancellation policy. Obviously, they would know your availability before then, but any information that's important to you and it's important that they would need to know, you need to give them that in the intro call so that they can make an informed decision about working with you. Then what you want to do is back that up in writing. If they're thinking about it, if you're giving them, 48 hours to think about it, make sure you put that in writing straight away so that they can process the information verbally and also in writing. If they have agreed to work with you straight away on that intro call, you want to put all that information in your welcome email. Again, that video that I will link talks all about the welcome email and what kind of information you can put in that. I also have a free template that you can use for a welcome email and lots of other emails that you would need to regularly use in your practice. So I'll leave a link in the description for that too. Sending the clients a welcome email before their first session really does set the tone and gives them that welcoming, supportive and professional impression of working with you. Make sure that you are sending the clients your paperwork in a really easy way that they can read and complete. I recommend using Google Forms for this, but you can use Signable as well if you don't use Google Workspace. But you want to make sure that however you're sending it, they can easily complete it online so they don't have to print things off, scan things, or take pictures and send it back to you. You want to make it really easy for them to complete their paperwork. This is the same for getting payment. I would recommend you asking for payment for that initial session up front. However you do your invoicing going forward, whether that's you invoice on session by session basis, whether you invoice monthly, whether you invoice retrospectively, however you do it, make sure you get the payment for that first session up front. It's going to make them much more likely to attend if they have paid for it. And you want to make that process easy too. So you want to make it really easy for somebody to receive the invoice and also make payment. If this can be done online as well, all the better. But getting payment via BACS is fine as long as you are putting all the information on that welcome email so that they only need to look at kind of one thing to make the payment. And finally, you should send them an appointment confirmation, and this should be via a calendar invite, and it should have all the information of how they're going to access the therapy. So that could be an online link, but it could also be information of whereabouts the therapy is, but that should include parking, it should include a full address, and it should also include details of what will happen when they get there. Is there a receptionist? Should they just wait outside, buzz the bell? You know, whatever it is, whatever the procedure is, make it really clear, because that's going to really reduce their anxiety of going to their first session. Okay, so they were all my tips on how to reduce the barriers to people accessing therapy. By prioritizing your client's needs and expectations up front, it's really going to increase the likelihood of clients getting to that first session and then staying working with you longer. You really want to evaluate and improve this intake or onboarding procedure to ensure that it facilitates rather than hinders people starting therapy with you. If you want further help on your onboarding procedure and all things to do with private practice admin, please check the description below. I'm going to link to other videos that are really going to help you with this. Until next time, thanks so much for watching.